If you can hear voices, it's the next door neighbours out on their like garden patio thing, but I am not shutting the windows. That is not happening. It's not today, Satan. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about what you can expect going back into rehearsals either during or just post the COVID times, whenever that will be. As you might know if you watch this channel regularly, I got an acting job, so I've just finished week 2. I'm going into week 3 of rehearsals tomorrow. When you're seeing this will be probably after this stint of the contract is finished, to be honest. I'm needing to pre-film because I'm very busy. So I've been rehearsing during COVID and it's a very different experience, as you could probably imagine, from how rehearsals used to be in the before times. So I thought I'd just share my experience, let you know the things that I found that are really different that you might experience once you're back in a rehearsal room, just to give you a little bit of warning so you can be fully emotionally prepared for it. Before we get started, show of the week is a chorus line, so I'll put a link in the description below for you to listen to the cast recording and check it out. Let's get into things that you can expect going back into the rehearsal room. Obviously, like I said, I'm pre-filming, so if there's like extra things that I realise after the fact, editing me will pop in to say, hey, there's also this stuff, but this is what I got so far. The first thing is tiredness. Everyone, and I mean everyone on the team was tired. I was shattered in the first week, our SM was shattered in the first week, our director was shattered in the first week. Even into the second week, we were all really tired. I think part of this is because rehearsing a show, especially for the actors, is very physical. You're on your feet, you're moving about, compared to in lockdown where most of us have been quite sedentary, either because we've been working from home if we've found jobs or had resting jobs that allowed us to work from home, or we've just been at home because everything is shut. So that's obviously going to make us more tired. But also mentally, acting is a lot of mental work. Not only is it things like learning lines, but you're taking in a lot of information and it's a very stimulating environment, again, compared to being home during lockdown. So both of those things combined, you're gonna be tired. Be prepared for that. Be ready for that. Just make sure that you have plenty of food with you to keep you going. Get some paracetamol or some painkillers because I got a headache on the first day. So yeah, just be prepared for the fact that you're going to be very, very tired, at least at the beginning of the rehearsal process. It's okay. Another thing to potentially expect is imposter syndrome. I definitely think when you've had such a big gap away, it can feel a bit like, oh, we're back into this thing, and do I even know how to do this anymore? And do I even deserve to be here? And am I really an artist when I haven't been doing this for over a year? So if you're feeling that, I'd say acknowledge that feeling, but acknowledge it for what it is. It's you being in a familiar yet new situation. It's you having come back from a very, very long time away. And that's okay. Be kind to yourself. If you're someone who does affirmations, for example, or if there's other things that you can do to keep yourself present and motivated through that feeling, then do that. It is a real valid feeling that you are feeling, but it's not true. It's not that you don't deserve to be in this rehearsal room. It's that you've had a long time away and your body and your mind are freaking out a bit. That's all it is. Another thing to expect, obviously, is that the dynamic in the rehearsal room is quite different. If you get back into rehearsals like long after the end of the COVID times, maybe you won't feel this that much, but I do think whatever happens whenever we go back to quote unquote normal, there is going to be an aspect of a different feeling. I think everyone is going to come out of this being hyper aware of personal hygiene and, you know, washing hands and stuff. So I do think that whenever you are able to go back into a rehearsal room, there will be some aspect of this. But obviously for me, rehearsing during the pandemic is still in full swing, there is definitely a different dynamic. Firstly, we can't get as close to each other. Actors in the scene, obviously we can, but our director can't come close to us. Our director is directing us from the director's table. Our movement director similarly can't get close to us, can't touch us and be like, you need to put your hand like this or go here. Pretty much everyone apart from us in scenes are wearing masks, so we're not even seeing people's full faces. It's very, very different. So that immediately has a different dynamic. Another thing I've noticed is that during breaks, and this is something that is varied even before the COVID time, varied from company to company and person to person, but we tend to take our breaks and lunches separately. We'll all be sitting on our own, or people will go off and do their own thing. And I think that's just to do with the fact that we haven't been around socializing with people for over a year. And I don't think it's because there's animosity in the room at all. We're all getting on, having fun, laughing, playing. It's nothing to do with us as people not gelling. I think it's just that hyper awareness of like, we need to social distance, and we haven't been in situations where we've been getting close to relative strangers. So we just haven't been. We've just been in our own little bubbles. And I think if you're someone who's really, really extroverted and you like having that human connection, just be aware that it's going to be different, and that's okay. If you're someone who maybe is lacking a bit in self-esteem, it's not personal to you. I think it's just people not being back to acting like people, and also the fact that it's not safe yet to act as people. And if that bleeds into the after COVID times, I think that's again just people needing time to readjust to habits that have been built over this year plus of the pandemic. So be aware that that is a thing that might happen. And again, if you need to find techniques to help support you emotionally through that change, then do that. The last thing, unless editing me wants to jump in. Yes, I do have something to add. Different location, I'm currently in Bath, so for this job that I'm doing, not just going on holiday during a pandemic, that's not how I roll. But the one thing I want to add is about tech rehearsals, that joy of theatre life. This is basically the same as my point about going back to rehearsals and it kind of being a shock to the system. But with tech, I wanted to mention it specifically because I think the thing about tech is how uncomfortable, like physically uncomfortable it can be, because you're under hot stage lights. I'm sure you remember this feeling if you're an actor in a costume, depending on what your costume is made of, if you're having to wear layers or heavy fabrics, hot fabrics. It's not always the most comfortable, especially because tech is very stop-starty, because tech rehearsal is for the technical team. If you have to stop because they need to sort a sound cue or a lighting cue or something, you've just got to wait until they've sorted their stuff out and then continue. And so it's not like when you're performing in your costume in hot lights and you kind of just get into the zone of the show and you very quickly forget or don't even notice how uncomfortable you are. If you're just kind of standing because you need to stand while they sort something out and you're like, oh man, I'm really hot, there's nothing you can do to make yourself comfortable. You can't take off a layer because that's your costume. You can't be like, can I just step off the stage for a bit? Unless you're feeling ill. Obviously, if you're feeling ill, do that. But if you're just like, I'm just feeling a little bit sweaty, you know, if they need to light you, you need to stand where you need to stand so they can light you. Even though intellectually you know that's how it's going to be, I think you forget what that actually feels like in your body. I haven't been in a tech rehearsal, I mean, apart from like yesterday and the last few days of this week when I'm filming this, I haven't been in a tech rehearsal since 2019. A tech rehearsal in an actual theatre with stage lights, like indoors. Yeah, I was kind of like, oh wow, this is what it feels like. And I think also, as well as the amount of time going back to theatre since you were last in a tech rehearsal, I think another thing is the fact that in lockdown we've just been able to be as comfy as we want to be. We haven't had to dress in certain clothes because we have a uniform for work, or we're expected to dress in office wear. If we've had Zoom meetings where we've needed to look presentable, we can just be presentable from the waist up. And when you're not having to be anywhere, if you want to be in joggers, you can. If you want to be in pajamas, you can. We have been able to spend over a year bowing to the whims of our comfort level, kind of. And that is not what tech is at all. Tech is not about being comfortable. So I don't have any solutions for this. I think it's just be aware of the fact that you're going to be uncomfortable in tech. Make sure you have water because stage lights, unless they're LEDs, are flipping hot. I had forgotten how hot stage lights are. They're so hot. And my character wears a turtleneck. They brought in the mood board and I was like, yes, I definitely think a turtleneck with a dress, that is definitely what she would wear. And then I'm in tech being like, why did I say I'd wear a turtleneck? Why did I do that to myself? But hey ho, we do it for art. Just be aware that you might be uncomfortable and sweaty. Make sure you have water, make sure you have snacks to keep your energy up and enjoy. That's it. I'll pass you over to past Michaela now. Bye bye. The last thing that I've noticed, which is more of a me thing, but if you're feeling like me, you might feel this, is that commuting is stressful. Now, full disclosure, I don't think I'm a full-on hypochondriac, but when it comes to this pandemic, I just really don't want to get sick. I don't want to have scarring on my lungs. I don't want to feel awful for however long you feel awful for when you get this. I don't want to feel like I might die, which is what some people have said that it feels like even if you survive. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to get sick. I'm terrible when I have a cold, let alone a full-blown like lung disease thing going on in my body. I don't want that to happen. And because of that, I personally am hyper aware of a lot of things. I'm hyper aware of where I feel safest sitting or standing when I'm traveling on public transport. I'm hyper aware of everyone who is not wearing a mask correctly or doesn't have a mask at all without one of those lanyards. I'm hyper aware of when people stand too close to me or walk really close by me. I am hyper aware of all of those things, how much ventilation's in the room, and it makes the actual getting to and from rehearsal at times quite stressful for me. It's not a fun experience, especially when I can't stand or sit where I feel safest. It's not fun. And that's a me problem. However, all of that stuff does bleed into what's going on in the room. And this is not just for like COVID things. Anything that's happening in your life, if it's putting you in a certain mental state, can affect how you are in the room. Now, luckily, I found that all of my anxiety about COVID safety getting to and from work, I can quite quickly get rid of that in the room. I think just the fact that we are in a room creating and playing puts me in a very present place. So in the room, on the whole, I'm fine. And I definitely think that the check-ins that we do in the rehearsal room at the beginning of the day really help with that. If you're curious about what a check-in is, it's basically just when you say how you're feeling, say what you're excited about, and say what you're anxious about. At least that's what the check-ins that we've been doing have been. And it's just been really useful to get any anxiety of what's happening, whether it's in the room or outside the room, out of yourself. So that's been really helpful. But also for me personally, just the act of being in a rehearsal room, and I think also the nature of the show that we're doing has kept me quite present, so I can quite quickly kind of get rid of the anxieties of the commute in. But you know, that might not be true of every person, and that might not be true of every show. Not every show is necessarily one where you can be really present in. If that makes sense, it might be difficult to get that feeling. What I would say is if you're someone going back into rehearsals when things aren't over, just be aware of what this global situation is giving you when you go into the rehearsal room. Not that what it's giving you is wrong, but just be aware so that you can come up with strategies to be able to do the work that you need to do. If your company that you're working with doesn't do check-ins, maybe suggest that. You might be like, oh, I don't want to talk about all the things that I'm worried about. No. You don't have to talk about everything, and you don't have to elaborate. There was one check-in where I really didn't want to elaborate, so I was like, I'm just anxious about this, and I'm just going to leave it there, just like a big all-encompassing nebulous word that didn't say specifically what I was actually thinking or worrying about, and that was fine. But also, if you want to talk about stuff that's going on, then you can if you want. Or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, or you know your company doesn't do check-ins and you don't want to suggest it, again, coming up with your own ways of being able to like shed that is useful. And also that's just something for post-COVID times as well. I think we all have stuff going on, and sometimes we bring that into the rehearsal room. So being aware of what you're coming in with and how to mitigate that so you can do what you love doing, I think is always a useful thing. So those are some of the things to potentially expect and prepare for when you go back into a rehearsal room, which I hope is really, really soon for you guys, all of the actors who might be watching this. You might not be watching this, you might be like, who the heck are you? But if you are watching this and you're an actor or another theatre creative and you're like, I don't know what's gonna be like when I'm back in rehearsals, that's just some stuff that I've experienced that hopefully can make you feel a little bit more prepared for that day. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Would love to have you on the channel. Come on down. Stay tuned for more theatre content from a UK perspective, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye friends!